And there's concern tonight about marijuana crops in Alabama.
Believe it or not, officials found more homegrown marijuana in Alabama backyards last year than in any other state. Mary Beth Cusack has been out with the crews who helped find those plants, and she has our special report, Up in Smoke. Mary Beth, how many plants are they finding out here?
Well, they still have several months to go, but last year alone they got 600,000 plants. So imagine that would literally be miles and miles of pot fields. But every one of those plants is worth $2,000 each. So that means a loss of more than $1 billion for the marijuana industry last year alone. And it's those numbers keeping the crews in the fields. Mark McHenry makes his way through the woods, enemy territory, looking out for snakes and booby traps, and of course, marijuana. More than a job, it's a mission.
I take it personally. I wouldn't want my child involved in drugs. If I can do just a little bit out here to help get it off the streets, then it makes me feel better.
The real battle begins when his four-wheeler calls it quits.
Sometimes you can't go in on four-wheelers and you got a pretty long walk.
Temperatures top 100 degrees as he storms through the brush.
You might have to walk 3/4 mile further than that into the woods. Sometimes you'll get into the woods and you might get 2 or 3 plants, or you might get 400 or 500. If you get a lot of plants, then you got to worry about hauling them, back out. So there's a lot to it.
Mark finds only 3 plants, a big effort with not much yield. Do you see as much of it on the street? But it's 3 plants Jackson County Sheriff Mike Wells won't see on his streets.
It seemed like it slowed down for a few years, but yes, it is. There's a lot of it on the street. More people are going, it seems like nowadays, to crack cocaine and crystal meth and stuff like that, but there's still a lot of pot out there.
Do you think if somebody's smoking pot, it's likely they're doing other drugs too? Is that usually the case?
Well, I've always said everybody that smokes pot don't do harder drugs, but I think 98% of the people that are on harder drugs start out doing pot.
Go ahead, Al.
When you're looking for marijuana,
That's Timber. We'll get en route.
you wait on word from those with a bird's eye view. This time, crews spot plants in the mountains of northern Alabama. It means miles of rough terrain, cutting through thick brush, taking down trees in your path, and hoping the pilots above are sure of what they saw. Years ago, when the eradication teams first started, it wasn't uncommon to find entire fields of marijuana growing, as much as a ½ acre. But now it's a lot harder to find the stuff. But when you come across plots like this, with these kind of plants growing, the extra effort is worth it.
This is a kind of an unusual occurrence where they planted this many plants in one area. Like I said, this is how it was last year in the same area all up through here. So this guy, he don't like to work for his, so he plants it all in one place.
Okay. Yep. That's miracle growth. That's the fertilizer.
350 plants right here. Getting to them is tough enough, but arresting the grower, close to impossible, unless agents camp out and wait.
We've made several cases in the past years where the planes will come in, spot it, and we'll send a ground crew back in, and then some of the growers will try to sneak back in and harvest some of it. And yeah, we've made some cases that way.
A plot this size would mean a felony for trafficking, big fines, and mandatory jail time. This grower will only feel the loss of his crops as his profits go up in smoke. If he plants again, he can count on plenty of return visits from the crew that doesn't call it quits. Now, what's unbelievable is with all that pot that they do find, only about 1 in every 10 growers is actually arrested for this.
Now, what are the charges for growing, or I guess it would be possession, right?
It would be possession. They range a lot, depending on the amount of pot that you have. They range from a misdemeanor, and that is what's considered personal use, to up to a Class A felony. That's